Whether you're listening on your favorite podcast app or watching on YouTube, welcome to the Lions Roar podcast, brought to you by Lions Roar, a nonprofit media organization offering Buddhist wisdom and guidance for mindful living to benefit our lives and create a more caring and just world. For more, go to lionsroar.com, and if you enjoy this episode, subscribe so you don't miss future ones. Today, Mariana Restrepo, Deputy Editor of Buddhadharma, speaks with Rosamaría Segura. With a background in the Vipassana and Soto Zen traditions, Rosamaria's work has focused on advocating for social justice, supporting disenfranchised communities, and serving as a death doula, a central topic of today's discussion. The conversation delves into how her Buddhist practice shapes her approach to death and dying, how to support those going through this transition, and the profound insights she has gained from those approaching the end of life.
Welcome to the Lions Roar podcast. I'm Mariana Restrepo, Deputy Editor of Buddhadharma. Today, I have the pleasure of speaking with Rosamaría Segura. Rosamaría is a teacher at Inside LA who teaches mindfulness and meditation in both English and Spanish, drawing from her background in the Vipassana and Soto Zen tradition. She's also the former director of Inside in Action, Inside LA's program that offers free mindfulness and meditation to marginalized communities lacking access or affordability to these teachings. Rosamaria's professional journey has been dedicated to working with nonprofit organizations, advocating for social justice, and supporting disenfranchised communities on the front lines of suffering. Rosamaria also serves as a death doula, which will be the focus of our conversation today. Rosamaria, bienvenida y muchas gracias por acompañarnos. Welcome.
Thank you. Gracias. I'm super excited and happy to be part of this program.
So for listeners who might not be familiar, can you tell us what is a death doula?
Well, as a death doula, we offered a buffer, a compassionate ear and companionship to those that are dying or relatives who are experiencing the transition of a loved one.
And what inspired you to become a death doula?
I think it's my own spiritual journey that at some point, I realized what a sacred moment it must be as we transition, as we know, as we have an awareness that we're getting closer to the end of this life as we know it. And so it's my own journey, and you're thinking of that, but also like just thinking, wow, that like this could be my last conversation with you, with anybody else. This could be it.
And so, you're talking about your journey, and as a Buddhist teacher and as a practitioner, how has Buddhism influenced your work with, as a death doula, with the people who are going through the transition of death?
Understanding that when I opened my heart to be with someone, is just simply appreciating and honoring their experience without expecting anything, being there as a student of life, and at the same time to be completely open and compassionate with the person that is trusting me with their process.
And how has this, shaped your own personal approach to death and dying? As Buddhists, we always talked about, death and dying, and working with people who are going through the transition and being there for them. How has that change your approach to this process?
Well, personally, I usually wake up and there's just like this, like you're in bed and just like trying to like, is it time to get up? Do I have a few more minutes? And so I remember, wow, what a beautiful experience to just be aware that I am waking up from my sleep. And there is that, and throughout the day, there's this, like moments of reflection that I'm carrying life on one shoulder and death on the other shoulder. and that I'm walking with both. And so it's this reminder that this is just a momentary day that I'm having, and kind of opens me up to experience and see things in different ways. Brings me back to find stability on moments that I'm struggling with different experiences. So it's this reminder that there is more than just this moment too.
Yeah.
That is my personal experience. Now, to be with others, is it's been really just kind of learning to be an active listener, to be really fully present to what people are sharing, are telling me with their experience. And we talk a lot about just listening, but when you are there in front of someone who really doesn't want to talk about dying, but just wants to talk about what they're experiencing at this moment, and there's a part of me that want to talk more about, well, are you having any fears? But they just simply want to talk about how they feel today, TV show that they watch today. And so it's kind of just being open to what I am receiving from them, and open with an awareness that we are in this moment just sharing something precious and sacred.
Right. And you mentioned awareness, and in Buddhist practice and mindfulness and meditation practice, there's a central aspect, right, where you're trying to be here in the moment, being aware, and death is, the transition of death is such a poignant, experience, because what else will really bring you to like the moment, right? To being aware of the moment of what's happening. And so that's a very, interesting way that you mentioned of how that it changed your own perspective of like trying to be present, trying to be in the moment, but also those who are going through that. And you mentioned fear. So can you talk a little more about that? How do you help people with the fear while they're transitioning?
It's not that I offer help. I wouldn't say that, because that's really not my role. But it's more to remind folks that fear is just part of our experience of being human. And so that reminder that it is okay to be afraid. It's natural. Yes, that's what makes us human, right? To have all these difficult and joyful emotions, and to open up people to understand and hold that fear tenderly, and not to push it away, to find some middle ground where they can be with that fear and still be open to what is happening and the opportunity that they have at this moment when they're talking with me or throughout the day. And sort of make fear their companion. That's what we do also, with all of other emotions that we experience, even when we don't have the realization that our life may end, today or in a year or in a week.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, death and dying are usually perceived as something that is scary or an intimidating process by many. And do you think it's possible to bring joy into the end of life period? And if so, how can we do that?
Well, I know someone who we've been talking for over a year about this person's death and aware, right? Somebody who's 90 plus, um, and there's a fear, right? But then there is, I can do these things. I can do all these other. What else can you do? Even when fear is right there, what else can you do? And sort of bringing the energy and focus into other possibilities. It's continued, and throughout this past year, in finding ways to enjoy a book, finding ways to make connections with others. So in this, with this example that I'm giving you, with awareness and embracing fear, instead of like spending so much energy into pushing that away, bringing to other energies that would bring joy into life. And so with some work, she's been able to sort of have a group of friends that they read book, and then they share ideas, continue to do some of the volunteer work that they have done in the past, continue to be engaged in decisions on appointments that they need to do. So places that they need to go, and finding options on how to get places where they need to go. So those little things can bring so much joy, even choosing what kind of meal they want to have today.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it sounds cliche, but it really is the small things, right? The things that we consciously choose on a daily basis that can make a difference. Um, so in terms of more practical aspects of your work as a death doula, so you provide services for those who are dying and also their families, and in three basic main stages, right? So before they die, during the process of dying, and after they pass away. Can you talk about these three stages and the kind of support that you offer in each of those?
Well, for those that are dying before, it's really their choice. Some of them, they just have a companion. Like I say, it's just having someone to talk about, what was this week like? How is it today? And honoring that, that's what they want to talk. That's fine. Other times it's just sort of looking back into pending things that have not been finalized, things that they want to complete, maybe writing a letter, making a phone call, or just recalling memories that needs to be ironed out. Sometimes it's just looking at photo albums and remembering, reviewing their life. Other times is leaving directives, directions, and orientation for the family. Other times is simply, remembering things that they wish they would done differently, and honoring that humanity, that there are things that we were not able to complete, and then that's okay, right? Because now we have other opportunities to do other things that we want to complete. So it kind of helping. Yes, maybe we couldn't do this in the past, but now we could do this and still have some say so on what we want, even after we're not able to say what we need. So it's sort of preparing them and giving them some sense of, I wouldn't say control, but some sense of independence and a say so on how they want to be remembered and how they want their loved ones to remember their life. Other times is having conversations with friends or relatives, delivering information to, and opening a space to do closure or to celebrate together. And for families who are witnessing the transition of their loved ones, it's about processing. It's about holding that transition and that moment that you don't know what's going to happen or when it's going to happen, and aware that their process is very different of the loved one, and sort of like stepping back and just opening to hold this space for the loved one. And sometimes that's very difficult because, our tendency is to protect, to help, but we don't know how. And other times we think that we know what the older person needs. And so it can be a little complicated when we just like want to do everything that is in our means to do, and the other person wants to just step back. I had recently came across a person who's like, I wanted to be with my mom during her last breath, but she asked me to leave, and I don't understand why, because I wanted to be and she wanted me to leave. And she says, I prepared myself. We talked about it. We had agreed. But at the last minute, the mother asked her to leave. And helping and assisting, and I'm using the word helping, but sort of supporting people to be okay with not knowing why their mom made that decision. And recognizing, but you were there. You were there, and what a beautiful thing that you honor your mom's last wishes. Right? What a beautiful thing that, yes, it wasn't what you wanted, but that's what your mother wanted. And so there's a lot of things that could happen that sometimes we need to just somebody to be there and remind us, oh, this is why you're doing this for the person that is transitioning. And after someone has transitioned, during the early grief, there's a lot. I could have done this, I could have done that. And then sort of helping people get, what would support you at this time? How would you want to be, remember if it was you, and what would your loved one would like if there are no instructions? So trying to help people to come to a place where they can honor their loved ones and also their grief. Sometimes the families have a hard time agreeing on what they want, and bringing the families together to just being with that disagreement, but being there for the person that they love. And that may come in different ways. Sometimes it's just sitting and sharing with the flow, or sometimes it's with a little bit of music, whatever it feels that is soothing and healing for them.
Yeah, hear you talk about these different experiences you had with people, and I mean, it just really kind of, for me, a lot of things that as Buddhists, we hear a lot about. We hear teachings about impermanence. Everything is always changing, or being aware, being in the moment, or accepting change. So all these things are coming together in this moment that is very charged for the person transitioning, and for the families. And you are there kind of like offering support in whichever way that manifests. Can you talk to us about what for you has been maybe the most challenging aspects of this work that you do?
I used to think that the most challenging aspect would be the different cultural and religious traditions. But I am realizing, and let me just kind of clarify that most of the clients that I work, most of them are BIPOCs and mostly Latinx. But surprisingly, that hasn't been the barrier or the most challenging thing. I think what I have recently experienced as most challenging was working with a group of formerly incarcerated individuals who lost one of their friends, which really their family. This is a group of people who share that experience of being formerly incarcerated and bonding, in creating a new family. And death in that case was really challenging because this is a group of survivors who, have gone through things that beyond my imagination, right? And they continue to survive, and understanding the obstacles that society presents to them, and understanding the lack of resources for them to survive, and just sitting with all that grief, the grief of losing a warrior, a person who had been striving and working really hard to survive, to continue living, and being with all of them who witnessed that this person really couldn't do it. It's because society did not provide them the tools that they needed to succeed. Um, that most recently, that has been the most challenging to me, because it's not only the grief of losing a loved one, it's not only the grief of a person, a life that has transitioned, but it's also the grief of all the possibilities that this community is deprived of.
Right. So what one lessons or insights have you gained about living from those who are approaching death?
Joy. It's and it brings me actually joy, because some of the people that I work with, despite fear, despite illness, discomforts, and body aches and all of that, there's always joy. There's always joy that comes one way or another. And being able to facilitate a path to connect to the joy that they have experienced, or possible joy that they can find, it's a beautiful thing. And the other lesson is how hard it is when we get stuck, even towards the end, in not being able to untangle this idea of how things should be. So it's been a great lesson and great teachers for me to see, wow, we can waste so much time in regrets, or thinking, oh, I should have done this or that. But when we're able to move away from that and say, wow, I have an opportunity, you and I have an opportunity after this conversation to do something different, or do it, or start again.
As a follow-up to that, I guess many people come to Buddhism because of suffering. That's what leads them to Buddhism. One of the Four Noble Truths is the truth of suffering. And so how can we both acknowledge suffering while also transforming it into joy?
I cannot transform the fear, or the sadness that my life or somebody's life is about to end. That's real. Or if you're having an illness that is bringing physical pain, it's real. I mean, that type of suffering is there. So all I could do is guide and support people to find that tenderness and compassion for that experience that we all have. So not pushing that away, not thinking that I'm going to be able to heal that suffering, but instead is, what else is there? What else is there besides this suffering?
And one last question. So for our listeners and viewers who might be going through this transition themselves, or maybe a family member is going through an end of life transition, what would you tell them? What kind of advice can you give them?
Well, if you're listening or watching this video, you're alive. How beautiful is that? How beautiful is that?
Thank you, Rosamaria. It was a pleasure speaking with you. And thank you for being here with us today.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thanks for listening. Mission-driven, nonprofit, and community-supported, Lion's Roar offers Buddhist teachings, news, and perspectives so that the understanding and practice of mindfulness, compassion, and wisdom flourish in today's world. Go to lionsroar.com and subscribe to receive unlimited access to online articles, meditation instructions, our new Buddhist glossary, and so much more.